1 Corinthians 14:40 says, "Let all things be done decently and in order." I think something that we need to remember is that order is not optional, it's biblical.
Welcome to Courageous Stewards, the podcast where legacy meets leadership.
We believe stewardship isn't just about managing resources. It's about multiplying impact, honoring purpose, and building with eternity in mind. Each week, we dive into business-focused discussions on real estate investing on a foundation of faith and family.
We have a desire to inspire listeners with a heart to reclaim their time, talents, and treasures for something greater. Whether you're growing your portfolio, leading a business, or a family, we need to become the best version of ourselves.
This is your space to gain wisdom, walk in courage, and steward what matters most.
Let's build what lasts. Let's lead with love.
Let's become Courageous Stewards.
All right, welcome back to the next episodes of the Courageous Stewards podcast. Today we're going to be talking about operational excellence, how stewards build businesses that run without chaos. Jake and I already hate this title. We don't agree with it. It's not real.
There's always chaos, fellas.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
When you're in these businesses, there's always something on fire. Something pops out of nowhere. Something's falling apart. There is chaos in it. We like to think of it as structured chaos.
Yep.
So we put some plan together. So we're here to help leaders build lives and businesses that honor God. And today we're talking about the topic of operational excellence.
1 Corinthians 14:40 says, "Let all things be done decently and in order." I think something that we need to remember is that order is not optional, it's biblical. It is vitally important that we do our very best to create systems and order so that we can progress. If you're everywhere all the time, you're going to have a very hard time honing in on what it is that God has called you to do and be, and being excellent at it, rising to the next level. If you're just chaos and everywhere, you'll be able to get to a certain point, but then there will be a bottleneck at some point. And unless you create systems and structure and steward what it is that God's called you to be and do, you're going to have a hard time breaking out of that bottleneck and getting to the next level and elevating yourself. So let's talk about why operations are stewardship. The first thing I have here just says stewardship is not just about money. It's about order. It's about structure. It's about responsibility. Talk about order creating capacity a little bit.
Yeah, I think order creates capacity for resources. Also, personal growth, our spirit, or even our spiritual lives. There has to be order there. It makes room for other things. If my home is in order from a biblical standpoint, there's bandwidth to do more, to grow more, to be a better influence. If my home is chaos, it's very difficult to sort out the other areas that I can really pour into and develop in my home. And I think the same is true for business. If you don't have structure and order in business, you're spending so much time flailing around trying to figure everything out as you're going, winging it, without any order or structure or process, that you're effectively creating inefficiencies that cost you, and you may not even see it because on the day-to-day, you're figuring it out as you go. But order creates capacity. So having order, having process, having structure is what creates the bandwidth to do more and to grow. So even in our spiritual walk, when you're starting out with your walk with Christ and you're trying to grow, sin doesn't get less, the battle doesn't get easier, it gets more difficult. So it's more about, so you've gotten some things in order, your life in order. What's the next thing that needs to be in order? Getting that piece put in place. All of a sudden, you're going to find yourself fighting bigger battles in business and in faith, but it's because you are working on your order as you go, and you're making sure order is a priority and there's some structure to what you're doing. I think it's so fascinating that the Bible is our faith foundation, our book for life, and it comes from Him, and it's a living, breathing word, which is amazing, but I also find it so intriguing how much of a business book it really is.
Oh, yeah.
When you can look back at that and you go, it says it right there. I'm supposed to be structured. It's okay to sit down, slow down, have process, have plan, and put some thought into this instead of just willing it and thinking it's going to work out.
What are some things, this isn't even in our notes, but what are some things that we can do to create structure for capacity? Like, I asked that question and I kind of already have in mind a couple of things that create structure for capacity. Things like consistently being in church, being a part of that community on a regular basis, not going, well, this Sunday I'm going to go. Maybe I'll go once in June. I may go at Christmas time. Easter's kind of fun. I'll go visit family there. Create consistency at that level. Be surrounded by believers in your community on a regular basis. That's one thing just in our own personal lives that we can do to create structure, to eliminate chaos and have some order and capacity. The same is true for business. Have some kind of a weekly meeting with your team. Maybe you don't have a team. Maybe it's just you. Have a weekly meeting with somebody that you can sit down with and talk to and say, these are the things that are happening in my business. This is what I'm planning on doing moving forward. Poke holes in it.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think. Is this a really bad idea? Should I, change here or adjust there? It kind of goes back to that, finding people who can be in your corner, maybe who have that experience, are maybe more knowledgeable, have the wisdom to kind of pour into your life a little bit, and ask them if you can just for a season sit down with them and create some structure in your business and talk things through so You're not just here, there, and everywhere. That's hard for me because I'm kind of a ready, fire, aim kind of guy, and I'm running all over the place.
Sometimes you have to be flexible, but if the majority of your stuff is more structured, maybe you have a plan. I think commitment is a good word, kind of with what you were saying about go to church, be at church on Sunday, be around good community.
Read the word.
But also in the time, like commit some time to it and be intentional about that.
Yep.
Use your calendar. I think it's so funny. People think using a calendar is going to take up more time or it's not really necessary. I think if you use a calendar, you actually free up time. So if you have a block in the morning for half an hour of reading your Bible and praying, it's good. Another perfect example is, and we've talked about this before, is are you making time for your spouse? Valuable quality time with your spouse when you're running a business. A lot of us are out here, we can work from 6 in the morning till 9:30 at night in any given day, at any given time. And okay, well, I just got to find time and get a date night in there somewhere. And then 3 weeks goes by and you haven't been out with your wife yet. It's like put it in the calendar, create time for it. That creates order, that creates capacity, and that adds value.
It absolutely does. Number 2 is order creates trust. It so does. I think more so on the investor side. For me, and maybe you can relate in some other way, but
investor and personal.
Yeah, I can see that. When I think of it right off the bat, I think when I'm around my peers and I project a certain level of order in my own life and in my business, it creates trust among my peers. They know and they see what I do and how I do it, and they go, I can trust that person. I know that they have things in order. I know they're moving in a certain direction, a positive direction, and it really creates that level of trust and a bond between people. Talk a little bit about the personal side of that.
So the order in your own personal life creates trust. So like you were going to use the investor example of somebody looking at you and going, if I'm going to give this guy some money to invest in a property, you better be able to trust them. You better have some degree of relationship, but also in personal. So like I consider you a friend and a business partner. So when I think Jake and something's going on, I'm like, I can count on him.
Yeah.
He's going to be there. He's going to be there on time, or he's going to beat me to wherever it is we're going. That form of order creates trust. I know I can trust you.
Yeah.
And so if my boys even, with my kids, if they're in a good season and they're handling their business, man, Brett says this, I'm not even going to assume anything else. He's going to do it.
Yeah.
If they're in a bad season and they're not on the ball and they're like, it's like, I don't know. I'm hoping he's going to be there, but I better stay on his case to make sure he is. It's that order of managing yourself well, showing that on a consistent basis, that's going to create trust.
I've always noticed how it's really hard for me personally to trust people who don't show up on time, who say that they're going to do something and then they don't do it when they say they're going to do it. And I've really driven that point home, especially in my own family with my own kids, is your word is so incredibly important. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. Even if it's hard, even if you don't like it, even if you wish later that you would have said no, you do what you say you're going to do. Your word means so much, and people trust you based on how you follow through on what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
So I really push that one a lot, especially in my own family. But I try to live by that too. I hope that it's obviously recognizable because you've seen it in our relationship that you know that if you ask me to do something and I say I'm going to do it, you don't ever have to question it again.
No.
And that's the way I'm going to live my life. If I say I'm going to do something, you better believe I'm going to do it. Yep. Even if I hate it the entire way, it's going to get done because I said I'm going to. Period. So create order in that way because it does create trust. Number 3, order creates scalability. We're still learning this one, I think, because we're in the process of scaling. We haven't arrived. And we seem to communicate, especially on a weekly basis, you and I, in our meeting times about what it looks like to scale, what it looks like to create systems that put us in a position to scale. But we do recognize very much how this level of order and having all of our ducks in a row. Right now, we're working on all of our SOPs, our standard operating procedures, and having those systems in place make a world of difference rather than just flailing out every which direction. You handle things this way this time, and then I'll handle things that way the next time. And no, we have systems and structure in place. This is the order that we do things, and for that reason, we're able to grow far beyond where we are right now. We're going to buy number 2 and then number 3 and then number 10 because we have systems in place and everybody who works under our company is going to know this is how we handle this thing. It creates stability.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's important to have those documents, processes, and systems in place because that's the order. The order's there, and then you start to scale or bring on another team member or another property. Well, it makes it easier and more efficient to scale. So having that order does create that opportunity.
It absolutely does. So let's talk about the steward's operating system. We have 5 systems that every steward needs or should implement in their own lives to hopefully steward whatever they've been called to do the best way possible. So number 1 is the communication system. Talk a little bit about the communication system, if you would.
Communication is, I mean, for both you and I, it's pretty pivotal. I mean, you just have to be. I like quick communication. That's something I like, and I try to exhibit that myself. If you reach out to me, I try to get back to you pretty promptly. Yeah. So it's just a matter of being an effective communicator, but also an active listener. You have to be able to listen. It's not always about giving information. It's about receiving information and hearing the right information. I think a lot of times people say things and we hear what parts of it we want to hear or we think they're trying to tell us, and oftentimes there's something lost in the communication where they aren't getting their intentions out that they want behind the words they're saying. And so it's being an active listener, but also an effective communicator.
I think this one for me goes back to those standard operating procedures, putting them down on paper, creating a system so that the communication for whatever it is that you're dealing with is already systematized. It's already in a sheet. You can follow it step by step. That level of communication eliminates the questions out of how things need to be handled. We did that in our operating agreement when we first decided we were going to partner on some of our stuff. We created an operating agreement that we knew we could go back to at any point and say, what did we decide when it came to how we were going to handle this thing? Well, I don't know. Let's go look. Yep, this is what we said we were going to do. Okay, that's what we're going to do. It eliminates the question marks.
Correct.
If your communication, for the most part, can be structured, written down, put in a spreadsheet so that it can just be looked at and followed, that's great communication.
Yeah. It creates accountability on both parties. Your goal is to try to eliminate some of that gray area. Anytime somebody asks a question and they can go, well, I didn't know that, or you didn't tell me that. Having that process documented well and being able to sit down together and go, we did talk about this. It's right there. Mm-hmm. That is one of the things you handle, and you're supposed to handle it just like it says here. Creates accountability. I mean, we've talked about that even from the volunteering standpoint. Sometimes at the church you get people that are easy volunteers. You get some more difficult ones, and it's hard to just go out around and give them your opinion. But if you can pull up the church's vision for that volunteer spot and say, listen, we operate here, here, and here. You're not aligning with this one. It creates that redirection and eliminates some of the personal opinions about it, It
reduces conflict.
Yes.
A lot. If things are just spelled out for you, you can go back and review them. So financial systems, this is a big one for us in our own personal situation, but talk about financial systems.
Scripture says, Proverbs 27:23, that we need to be sure to know the condition of our flocks. The simplest terms in business, your flocks are your books.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to go to the books. For me personally, I like this. I like looking at these. These are my Excel sheets, my bookkeeping, accounting softwares that I go back and I look at the numbers, what's coming in, what's going out, and I manage it well. I make sure we're stewarding it, making sure you have reserves, making sure you're keeping things alive. Like you said, having a solid foundation, and that equally is part of your finances. And then having processes in regards to, if you're trying to create operations around this, is somebody else is going to need to know that. The other team members are going to need to know that. And you're on a team whether you have other employees or not. The team could be you and a partner. Like, there's just two of you. Then you've got to have understanding and resolve around how the structure is going to look. Otherwise, you two are going in different directions. Mm-hmm. I know we just sat down yesterday and just pulled up the Excel sheet. It just gave us a chance to sit, look at what my mind is on an Excel sheet with our business and making sure you're on board with it. And then it aligns with our goals and that we're tracking it. So just having operations, procedures, documents around the system and the plan for your finances around your business is pivotal.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me, you were talking about team, and it doesn't really have much to do with this episode in particular. Well, it kind of does, I suppose, but before you and I partnered to do some of the things that we're doing now, my team was my family, more specifically my wife and kids. And I say that because my kids are all employees in our business, and we want to and are clear with them on our finances, what we own, and what needs to happen, where we're going, what direction we're going. And we have family meetings and business meetings about those very things. We'll sit down for a half an hour and we'll discuss, this is what we've purchased this year. This is what we've sold this year. This is where our money is at right now. This is how much we have, what we're investing in, what you guys are investing in, because we help them to invest in their own futures and stuff, as well as we invest into them as well. But you don't have to have a partner in the strictest sense of the word to have somebody that you can sit down with and communicate about what's happening in your life, in your business. Maybe that's a partner. Maybe it's some kids. Maybe it's a parent that you have, whoever it is. That's just kind of how we have handled it, and maybe somebody can get some value out of that too. So, number 3, maintenance and workflow systems. This kind of goes back to the whole standard operating procedure, but a little bit more on the hands-on side of things.
Yeah, maintenance and workflow, especially if you're going to have a team. We've talked a lot about process and documents, so it's important to have those for sure. But you're talking about maintenance and workflow, and that can mean a lot of different things in regards to maintaining the business that you have and the style business it is, and making sure that you are on it now. And then the workflow, and making sure the workflow is happening. What I see in this one is actually more consistency in communication and circling up regularly with your team in regards to just how was last week? How's this week supposed to look? You talked a bit about it, like, where are you guys going? Where were you? So it's just that consistency and that maintenance, both with the business fundamentals that you have with your operations, but also with your team, the people, and the workflow in regards to what's happening next. Mm-hmm. You can't just print a bunch of documents, hire somebody, and then just go and be like, this is all going to work out fine. If you're not consistently circling up to give that maintenance in regards to your team and the business and communicate that workflow, making sure things are getting done, measuring, having some metrics around what it was put in place and how effectively is it working and where are you going next time is really good. And just making sure that knowing that excellence that you're striving for requires that structure.
Excellence requires structure so much. And you just said that right there at the end, but I think it's something that we need to remember. Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. I think that so many times there's a lack of excellence in a lot of people's lives because there's no system and structure in place. And a simple structure would alleviate a lot of that stress and complication and frustration. Some things to think about. Number 4 is people systems. Talk a little bit about people systems for us.
For me, that's backwards. It's typically, for me, it's systems and people.
Yeah.
The people are going to need the systems because just like you said, if you have somebody and you put them in a role and you just kind of leave them there and you give them some verbal instructions, people often feel left out and feel out of the loop and feel unappreciated, and like you didn't take the time to put into the position you've given them.
Yeah.
So they lack direction. It creates division, and it creates a sense of being tossed into a fire. When you take time to give some really great, excellent systems, processes, and even include them in their buy-in, as long as they're a good employee and a good team member and they offer valuable input, you can have them help refine your processes. So now they have ownership in their position.
Absolutely.
So people want to feel included. They want to have that buy-in, and you can create that by managing a good people system. But you really do need to have great, clear instructions. Expectations are huge, and having that communicated on our systems and our documents, our SOPs, before you bring that person on is pivotal. Then you bring that person on, you get them involved, you show them value by the effort you put into creating that role, and then allow them the opportunity to be involved in their own position.
Yep.
And making sure when you have a people system, they're not a number, they're not there to get you another check. The more you pour into that person, both on a professional and a personal level, the higher developed they become. If you can help them and they're willing to listen and to ask for that kind of help, is you can develop them personally and professionally, even spiritually if they're willing. Ministry is always the mission. But all of a sudden, you've now elevated that team member far beyond the paperwork, right? The role, the steps, it says, the bullet points on the sheet. Yeah. That person's now living a better life at home. Their tank is more full. They're higher operating in their normal life and their relationships, then they're coming to work killing it here. That person very quickly could find themselves in a high operating role in your company, and it's because you took time to figure out what's going on in their lives outside of just work. A lot of companies are so quick to focus on the bottom line, the productivity and the output. You got to remember people have lives outside of the role that they're in, the paperwork that you've given them, right? Yeah, people aren't a handbook. They've got relationships that fall apart, kids that may be going through a custody situation. They could have lost a spouse or a family member, and then they're at work and you're still barking about how they messed up on an Excel sheet last week. Get a handle on maybe what's going on in their day-to-day life. Not everybody shares, but there's something so valuable just saying, how was your day? How was last week? How's everything at home? Let them get there. Connect personally first. That way your hearts are at least somewhat, there's a relationship there, then there's business. So the people system is important. We are all children of God, and I think we lose sight of that sometimes in the business world because they become another item that we need to have in place to do the job, to get the work done, to make more money. It's so much more than that. God wouldn't want us to operate that way. We're all basically family, so we should act that way.
Yeah, relationship is more important. Now, with that being said, I do think it's important to pick 2 to 5 measurable items that you have somebody working for you doing that you can keep them accountable for, that you can circle back on and talk about and see how they're doing, if they're dropping the ball here, or maybe they need some additional structure or system in place here to make this one more successful. You can circle back and talk about those things, but don't lose sight of the fact that the person is more important than the system and the structure and the several tasks that you have set for them to do. Although you want to get those accomplished, people first.
Absolutely. Having metrics, measuring them, feedback is crucially important. Getting it and giving it is important. But it's hiring is stewardship. But I made a note here that firing is obedience. Mm-hmm. I think I've seen companies. I used to work for a company, and sometimes it was so much harder for them to fire somebody. I don't think you just go around firing everybody because they made you frustrated one day. No. But there's a time and place to work with the person to try to help. And oftentimes, if they're competent, you can change their skills. You can train the skills. But if you're trying to get a heart change, that's something only God can do.
Toxicity is a poison. It's a cancer. And if you don't eliminate it, recognize it early and eliminate it, it's going to bleed over into the rest of your team and affect your business, your emotions, everything about what you're doing. Yep. And so recognize it very early on and eliminate it is really, really important.
Yeah, everybody has influence. Sometimes we only think the ones we like have influence. Everybody has influence, and it's important to remember that, because you trying to do a heart change for somebody to get them to step into the line with the culture maybe you're trying to create is playing God. Mm-hmm. There's only so much time you can pour into that heart change before you have to go, God's got to do this. I can't, and you're just not a good fit. We have to move forward, and every day that person maybe is on the team not changing. It's slowing you down. It's creating inefficiencies, and so
it's hard. It's a hard position to be in, but God has called you to be the leader of your organization for a purpose, and that's part of it.
Yep.
Sometimes the hard things have to be done.
Speaking of,
What's that?
like the next one.
Oh.
Like that rolls right into the next one.
Oh, decision-making and systems. That's the final Steward's operating system item that we need to touch on. So yeah, decision-making systems. Talk about that.
Yeah, decision-making systems. So for me, mine are pretty simple. I'm not too far into, my business is relatively small. I don't have a lot, but decision-making, I think a lot of times it is, if you continue to leave it up to emotion and circumstance every time, you'll drive yourself nuts and you're going to make bad decisions. You might make some good ones, but you're going to make some bad ones. So a really simple example of this is having some wisdom around decision making, and that comes down, that can be as simple as, for me, one of the things we do is we have a buy, no buy process. It's a go, no go gauge for properties. Yeah. It has to at least meet 5 criteria before I say, okay, we'll probably move on this. But even then, it's sit down with my wife, let's look at it, let's pray on it, and then we do this or not. And that makes it really easy, because if one of those things isn't in line, I move on.
Yep.
And so sometimes getting hung up on a decision too long can really be a stressor.
Yeah. We have written down here, wisdom plus process equals clarity.
Yep.
Systems turn chaos into capacity. If you have a system in place, what would have been chaos prior to the system now gives you a capacity to look at everything and create a situation where you can make the best decision based on the system that you've put in place.
Yeah, I love that. I do, because if you think about it, if you bought the property and things worked out, boom, you just added it to your portfolio. If that same process says don't buy this property, well, you just created capacity anyways, because now you have capacity to go to another deal.
For the next thing.
So it makes perfect sense. It really does. Love it.
James 1:5 also says, if any of you lacks wisdom, ask God. I think that's something that we need to drive home or at least touch on, is the fact that you don't have to go alone. Even if you don't have a team surrounding you, take your situation to Christ.
Always.
I've kind of hit on this with my kids a lot lately, where prayer is not just sitting down at the kitchen table before dinner and everybody holds hands or crosses their hands and they say a prayer and thanks God for their food and then they go about their day. It's constant communication with God. And therefore, it's like you're talking to anybody else. Talk to God about your situation. Talk to him about the deal that you're talking about, possibly buying. You're an entrepreneur, the business that you're running, where you're struggling, where things need to improve. It's a constant communication. And if you don't have somebody else to communicate with the Holy Spirit, communicate with God. Talk to him all the time, even if it's just in your mind or under your voice. Yeah. It's important.
You don't always hear him loud and clear right away or anything, but if you don't take the shot to have a relationship and talk to him, you're not even giving him the opportunity to go, red light, don't even think about it, because sometimes he does give us those pushes and says, this isn't it. This is not what I have for you. So I love that. Yeah, just talk. Just have casual conversation with the Lord.
There's so much importance in order and structure, creating systems. I think the thing that I've thought about from my perspective about a property is when you walk into a property, whether it be the first time after you close on it and you take it over and now you have to do some things, you don't just automatically walk in and start painting the walls. You walk in and create structure. You create a system. You put things in order, basically. I need to do this, and then I need to do this, and then I need to do this.
That's good.
You write it all down, and then you start checking things off. Creating structure and a system to follow in a property is so vitally important. But also, I would say that's the same with your family structure, or if you're in a business or ministry or whatever that thing is that you're doing, creating order and systems so that step 1 comes before step 10. You don't do step 6 before you've done step 2. Yeah. Go do 2, then 3, then 4. It creates that order and capacity to move through everything, and then you look back at the end and you go, I've accomplished all of them, and probably far faster than I would have if I would have bounced around and done paint, and then done electrical, and then put outlet covers on, and then done the flooring, and you're just all over the place. So create a system and follow it. Makes a big difference.
Yeah, you're bringing up a big point, a big word here, which sequence. Sequence is important to order. Just like you said. In what order do you do it? And then measuring it and checking back and looking back on it. Like, you can't improve what you don't measure and quantify and reflect on. You just do it and keep going without looking back and going, that worked, this didn't. you got to learn from it.
Yep. I think we can remember one thing about this podcast. It's that order will produce fruits. If you have an end goal, a vision for where you want to be, order can get you there. It will put you in a position to get there far faster if you're not bouncing around all over the place.
It's I think the hardest part with that when an order produces fruit is we'll do that for certain things. If we're planning a vacation, think about how much planning people put into a trip. Mm-hmm. But then they come back and you go, hey, do you guys have, do you have a budget? No.
No.
Well, you put all that time and energy into a binder for a trip and planning out where you're going, what time you're going to be there, schedule a template where you're getting the money, but you don't have a budget at home. It's because it has to do with how much you care about the thing you're doing. Everybody loves vacations.
Yep.
Not everybody loves a budget, but it does. If you apply that same energy, that order, it'll produce fruit in that budget, in your finances, in your personal life, in your home, on top of in that vacation that you so thoroughly had order and planned out,
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to ask ourselves, where is chaos stealing from our calling? There's always something, I think, that each one of us can reflect on.
That's good.
Where we can think about where that chaos is stealing from our calling and try to improve on that.
Yeah, the devil's in distraction.
Yeah.
He loves to pull us off of our direction and our course and our alignment with God.
Yep. Where there's chaos, God invites you to bring order. I think that, let that set in just for a second. Where there is chaos, God invites you to bring order. I hope this podcast has inspired you to create operational excellence wherever that is in your life, whether that's at home with your family or in business or investing or ministry or whatever the case is. I think we all can probably recognize in some area of our lives where we can create some additional level of order that will help us with our capacity to improve, grow, and make a difference. Hopefully this has made a big difference for you guys. We love having you come alongside us, listen to us, engage with us, go talk to somebody about how you are improving your operations and trying to create operational excellence. I always say the wrong thing.
It's okay. I forgive you.
Anyway, thank you
Great.
guys. I always say elegance instead of excellence for some dumb reason when I'm on a mic, but then I get it right every other time. We love you guys. We look forward to the next one. We'll see you later. Thanks for joining us today on Courageous Stewards, where legacy meets leadership and faith fuels the journey.
If this episode stirred something in you, share it with someone who's ready to step boldly into their calling. Subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected as we continue to explore what it means to lead with conviction, serve with excellence, and build with eternity in mind.
So until next time, keep showing up, keep stewarding well, and remember, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's obedience in motion.